Hello everyone and welcome. Yes, my name is Arrowfire and welcome back to another episode of Look Out and Shout, where today we are reviewing X-Transbots MX-XXIV security agent Yaguchi, their version of an Omnibot downshift. Now, it might not shock you to know that I am not the biggest fan of the Omnibots, in as much as I don't know much about them. It's not really my era of Transformers. But this was sent down to me from my good friends at Primetime Toys, where you too can pick up this figure and many other figures of your choice by heading to primetimetoys.co.uk, and I'll put a link to this figure in the description of the video below. As such, I do recommend you go and check out their lovely wares on their website. If this is your first order with them, do not forget to use the promotion code POWERUP10 to get 10% off your entire basket from the first order. Thank you very much to Primetime for sending me down this figure. The box itself is nice. It comes in alt mode, so you get a small box to really look at. Most of X-Transbots figures are like this, although their big load, their long haul, wasn't. But I remember their Bon James, their punch counterpunch, was transported like this. So it's a bit slender box. You get nice artwork of the figure on the front with some interesting green deco on the back, with a bit of a philosophical meaning on the side of it that says, in theory, no one is above the law. In practice, I make sure of it. On the back you have a nice little battle scene that's been on some of the other boxes, as well as text specs on the bottom as well. Inside the box comes the figure itself, as I say, in alt mode, along with the instructions, collector's card and his gun accessory. Without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? And here he is in his robot mode. This is definitely the strongest of the two modes. There is more to like here in this mode than, say, the alt mode. For, again, a character that is just coming across very blocky, solid white. The gold accents, the hints of red, the very faintness of colour being used here is breaking up what is a very solid white figure. I was in two minds of picking up their Runabout, Run Amok, and now looking at what a solid white figure would look like, maybe I'm not so compelled, maybe I'm not so keen to do so. It just can't escape this solid white piece that otherwise can just look very bland and empty. But as I say, the black, it's another neutral colour. The gold and the red and the orange, the amber, is all helping. Is all breaking up and giving a nice bit of accents, nice bit of highlights here and there for what is an otherwise very solid figure. The transformation is fine. I will say I had to use a couple of transformation videos. Thank you to Deluxe for helping me with that. But otherwise, it's okay. It's a car bot, so you can sort of know. And he's got his car limbs off him, so you can kind of work out where things are going to be. This is probably the hardest part, or actually I should say, winching out the waist and the hips is the hardest part. Definitely, when it comes to that part of the transformation, refer to transformation videos. But there is a lot of die cast here, which is better in a sense. I don't feel like it's going to be broken. There is one particular flimsy bit, which I'll show you in a second. But otherwise, the transformation was okay. There's only so many steps to it, and we more or less know how car bots go. You might see around the back, it is quite a hot mess, and I'll show you more in a second. But when you line everything up, there is pegs, stuff wants to come unpegged, and the back section of this figure is a bit of a hot mess. And it doesn't hold together very well, and you're forever fiddling with it. But it's nice when you see the gold accents highlighting, giving a little bit of pop here and there, and the die cast is a nice feature. I didn't necessarily expect there to be so much. It's not like a Takara Masterpiece car bot where it is just all plastic and hollow. There is some solidness here. It does give a little extra oomph to the figure. Let's get in for a closer look. So first of all, I'll show you what I mean about this back part. Do you see about here? There's these two hinges and there's a sliding part just there. You can see a little groove in between. Daylight's passing through. That is probably one of the flimsier parts of this. It's just plastic and you have to slide it out of the way. Considering you slide it out by putting it away, that part, and one side will go before the other, it's a little disconcerting, so just be a little careful with that. This hinge, I don't know if I can get it in focus, you can just see that U-bend hinge, just about there where it's touching. That's what you've got to hinge down from what will be more or less around this side. It's got to hinge all the way down to here. And it's awkward and stuff gets a little bit in its way. It's, yeah, just two parts of the transformation I'd ask you to be a little careful of. Also, I've got the addition of squeaky. I have no idea why. Squeaky joints. Haven't had that since the Kang Toys figures. Not bad. Tolerances are actually quite good. I'll show you actually. Yeah, okay. Bit of floppy friction there. The legs being die cast will carry extra weight. So sideways out is a little bit on the floppier side. The hips are all one piece, so you get a tougher friction going out. No droopage there. Get a good bend at the knee. That's a very nice bend. Ankle tilt to about that, which is something. He can also fold all the way down, but going into transformation realms. But as such, the tightness of the hip will end up knocking the waist down. So you just have to do a little bit of resetting. By no means a bad figure, by no means. Shoulder's pretty good, not too flimsy. Shoulder rotation, stuff getting in the way, bicep rotation. Double bend on the elbow, very nice, do like it. Again, to do a transformation. Wrist rotation, I don't think it's individual fingers, no, it's just the open and close clasp with the hand and a slightly movable thumb just for holding the gun. And then up to head rotation, left and right. Can look up a bit, can't look down much. And a waist rotation, which is nice, but again, stuff getting in the way a bit. So I find once you've handled him, you have to reset him somewhat. You have to flatten everything and get it all down and tidy. And he's okay come the end of it. And of course he comes with his gun, which pegs into the palm of his hand. And that's him holding it. It's a very piss-weak gun. It's very small. And it has hinging mechanisms to it, so it will store in alt mode, I should say. It's fine, it pegs in okay, it's just very, very small. He has kind of got these shoulder cannons on the go as well, so does he really need them? But it would probably be weird for a Transformer not to come with a gun nowadays. It's just very, very small in hand. I possibly would have liked that to be, yeah, looking more like a drill, handheld drill than a gun. Okay, on to some comparisons. Here he is alongside MMC's Navigant, their version of a G1 Streetwise. Hey, fine, you're not going to get these two sharing the same screen, but this is how I still say the Masterpiece Carbot scale is outdated now. Same height, it's same build, similarities, but that's about it. It's in keeping, but a completely different aesthetic. Here he is alongside Takara Masterpiece Tracks. You do see a bit of differences from Takara to X-Transbots in that the legs on X-Transbots are much wider when you look at the comparison of robot mode for Tracks. Same scale, in keeping, but maybe a fair bit older now perhaps as well, but you do see some upgrades in engineering and build and spec. I guess this is really where third-party Masterpiece and official Masterpiece come into it. But yeah, that's quite interesting to see those two together. And in my last review, here he is alongside Takara's Brave Commander, Orion Pax, or Optimus Prime from the Transformers 1 movie. Not Masterpiece scale, but you can see the size we're dealing with. I mean, this is quite big by Chug standards, if you call it Chug. But then, yeah, I really haven't got anything else to do a comparison against. He's in keeping with Carbot scale, so comparing him like for like with other figures, somewhat of a waste of time. He's going to be considerably smaller than MP44 or MP36. So yeah, when he's this small compared to other figures out there, you have to think about who he's going to stand alongside in your collection. Okay, let's get this guy into his vehicle mode, shall we? And here he is in his vehicle mode. And it's a very good looking Toyota. Certainly if you're into those 80s cars. Very stocky, yet stock car, touring car kind of vibe. It's very respectful to the model of the vehicle. Transforming it from robot mode into alt mode, considering it comes in alt mode, is possibly the harder way of doing it. There's some things that you like to pop out again, you have to fight, and I think I remember that when I handled their Bond James, their punch counter punch. When you try and get it back into vehicle mode, things like to pop off and pop out, and vehicle modes in general can be like this. you'll see in a minute, but the base of the windscreen does like to pop out, and that causes the doors to pop out, which actually open as a gimmick anyway. But it's very nice otherwise. You kind of know what to do, I suppose. Carbot transformations are generally straightforward. As I say, the hip, the waist, tilting that back in is tricky, and stuff gets in the way when you're transforming. It's a bit awkward. Do it step by step, it's not too bad. But it's here. It's got nice presence. It is just black and white though. This is where I'm kind of feeling like, whilst it's got that white sports car kind of vibe going on, it is just black and white, and it doesn't have any frills. And when you put it, I think if you had it on anything else in your collection alongside the likes of a Hot Rod or even a Jazz or Wheeljack or any characters like that, this could easily be swamped and forgotten because he hasn't got any racing stripes or flames or anything like that. I'm not saying they need to, but generally Transformer alt modes have a bit more going on or be a bit more prominent colour than just black and white. We don't see black and white that often when it comes to paint schemes, and certainly in just solid colours for an alt mode. It can just look a bit too, well, black and white, basically. But let's get in for a closer look and I'll show you some of this model's features. So as I say, rubber tyres and rolls nicely. That's very nice. The underside's okay. This part, which is making up the feet, it does like to protrude a little bit. You can sort of see it's supposed to tab in, and it does. But yeah, I can never get the transformation as right as when you get it out of the box. So in terms of features, actually, I'll show you the doors. Take ages to get them shut, now I can't get them open. So he can do a nice open car door look, and that is nice. I do like that toys do that nowadays. You don't see much in terms of the inside, but it's nice that he's got the hinge to do so. But you can kind of close that back up a bit for the other feature, which is the same on either side, and have these side door guns on the go. Nice little shooting feature. It's a bit Trax-like in his wings, and yeah, it's fine. I can only see you doing it maybe for a couple of photos, but otherwise it's a bit of a gimmick, nothing else. But it is use of them. I suppose it's homage to the character, but again, it's not a character I'm too au fait with. Now I'll quickly show you the bit that likes to fight me now. It's the base on this windscreen. There's two pegs here, and as you see, if you try and clip in the doors to get that real flushedness, it can dislodge some of the windscreen. So just be a little careful. You do have to make sure everything's right, everything's pegged in to where it needs to be. Generally, once everything's in place, it will hold. Now, additional feature, and I didn't know this at first, flip up headlights. Very nice, very cool, very 80s. And I kind of feel this should be a standard. Doesn't really kind of give off that vibe initially, or even really say so on a box art that it can do that, but it looks quite cool. That gives a bit more of a real world look, I suppose. But it is, you know, a real world looking car. Exhaust, headlights or rear lights. I wish they either had clear transparent or blue going on. I don't like the black shade. It's the same for X-Transbots, not X-Transbots, sorry, MMC's Navigant for their Streetwise. The black just looks dead. I wish they had maybe a misted blue on the go, like they did for their first aid, Medicus. Okay, other feature. I didn't know what this was at first, but that's storage for his gun. At least that's what I've worked it out to be. I'm not entirely sure it's meant to be, but he has a base for the groove for the gun. Now, because the gun is on a couple of hinges, I think you are meant to, or at least you can, kind of have him shooting a bit like that. Which, if that is the case, fine. Yeah, it's a using of it. It's funny, there's a door hatch or a roof hatch, a sunroof to do so, and that would be him fully armoured up. Guns tilting upwards, all firing, windows up, everything ready to go. Headlights as well. Nice. You can't do an awful lot with car gimmicks, really. You can open and close doors, but what else do you do with cars? So I suppose they've done the maximum as to what they can with this vehicle mode. Okay, on to some comparisons. Here he is alongside Takara's Smokescreen, one of the Datsun brothers. And yeah, it's fine, but this is where I feel we should have had much more going on in terms of a livery here, because when you get more of a racing livery on the go, it actually makes this mould of Smokescreen look good, and it's arguably not. But it's in keeping. It's fine, it's cool. When you put them in a squadron, it looks quite at home. very 80s in its vibe, but you see what I mean around the paint scheme. It could have just done with that little bit more. But yeah, otherwise, that's how they look. And here he is alongside the Lamborghini Countach of Takara's Red Alert. Same story, old and mould, and not a very good one. It's a KO. It's kind of my generic show around, but you do see, again, there's a bit more going on. Although that white is better than the soft grey, I think there's much more of a pop to it. I feel the red print on the side of the doors just gives Red Alert that little bit more of a vibe than versus a solid white. And any excuse to show him off. Here he is alongside X-Transbots Big Load, their version of Long Haul. Completely different grading, completely different, well, not different company, same aesthetics, same materials used, but different ranges, different areas of the fandom that they're aiming at. Combiner, not a combiner, Omnibot, Constructicon. Yeah, it's just interesting to see a couple of similarities in terms of the plastic feel, the tyres, any amount of die-cast used. Yeah, you do see one or two similarities, but that's about it. So what is my view on Tamagotchi? Well, as I say, I've got no connection, no emotional connection to this figure, which I guess for the purpose of a review is probably a blessing in disguise. I can then look at this toy just objectively for what it is. And it's got its charm. It's not as bad as you might think with it being X-Transbots. Is there QC issue? No. The transformation is okay as well, quite simple in some places. There are a couple of things that are awkward, and I would recommend a couple of transformation videos. And there's maybe some slender bits at the very top, the hinges for the hood coming over, you have to slot them out, and they're on some flimsy bit of plastic that whilst they slide out, yeah, just be a little careful with that. There's a good bit of weight as well. The legs and the centerpiece, the legs, all of them really, are die cast. So there's a lot of good presence here. I'm trying to remember, and I've since sold my copy on, of their Bond James, their punch counterpunch. I don't think this had this much die cast in. I feel this feels heavier in hand, and as such it has that little bit more of a premium feel to it. I can't get away from the fact it's just white. It's just solid white, as is the character. It is what it is. But I will say, it makes the gold pop that much more. When I got it into robot mode, I was quite surprised with that. Because otherwise, even the face sculpt, the head sculpt, it is just white. It's a slightly different shade of white for the eyes, and white for a mouthpiece, and if it's not for the black, you wouldn't, it'd look like Run Amok, or Runabout, which one's which. The back of the robot mode, yeah, it's a bit of a hot mess. I'm not going to say it's not. Kibble's got to go somewhere, but I think X-Transbots could have done a better job with that, and it doesn't hold in place as well as you might think, like it easily becomes mistransformed, so yeah, you're constantly putting things back into these two pegs back here, which I'm trying to do now, and it's just, yeah. After a while, you give up and just let it hang there. It's not the end of the world. I like things about it, but again, I'm just not that big a fan of the Omnibots in as much as I just don't have a connection to them. I would prefer Throttlebots over this. I would prefer Headmasters over this, for example. I can only think that if you're a real completionist, do you get this? In as much as it's a nice enough toy and they've done a good enough job, and it doesn't cost half the world, so it ticks a lots of boxes. But do you need to go after this for your collection? How much of a completionist are you? So looking at it objectively, I would say robot mode wins out of the two modes. The alt mode can come across a bit bland. Again, you have to be a fan of the Toyota, I suppose, and yeah, it's nice enough, and the doors open, the headlights come up, but again, it's just solid white. It's a very 80s car scheme, I get it, but it can just come across a bit block white and bland. It would have done better with some of their other offerings that they've been putting up of race cars, and they have like racing stripes and flames and stars and effects that just give it that little bit more of a pop. That when you get a solid white figure, it's relying on things like the gold accents to give it that bit more life. Otherwise, it's just a black and white figure and it looks a little bit unimaginative. Which again is not X-Transbots' fault, other than the fact they chose to do this character. It is just the nature of the colour scheme of said character. Accessories, it comes with its gun. Yeah, what else would you really give it? Maybe an interchangeable face, but he's got a faceplate. What are you going to do? It is what it is. Don't read too much into it, I would say. Posability's fine. It's got some good posability. I like things like the nice knee bend. There's almost a double knee bend. Squeaky though. Oh, that's a not QC, but it's not great either, if you see what I mean. It's nice enough. It just comes across with no frills, no excitement, and you're getting it if you're a completionist. But otherwise, it's not a mainstay character. It's nice, though, that X-Transbots are going after this and that they're keeping away from some of the more common characters. I guess it's going for other areas of the market, but I can't really say that because they're in the Devastator wars, aren't they? Releasing their Devastator figures along with fan stores and everyone else. But X-Transbots are kind of casting their net out far and wide, and okay, at least they're trying something a little different. I'll give them a little bit of praise for that. But it does fall into the trap of, well, it's a bit of an obscure figure. Do I really need it, want it, must have it in my collection? But based on all of the figure overall, and as much as it has QC issues, its price, its accessories and everything else, I give this 3 Rodimus Star Badges. It is not to say it's bad, far from it. But it just comes across limited in terms of its frills and excitement, and I think it's something that could have been done better if they'd done a different character. There could be more to offer. I think they were limited with what they can do here. They're picking on a very small corner of the market with the Omnibots. And whilst they should be praised for tackling these, no one else is going to do them anytime soon. Are you really going to go out your way to have them in your collection? It's up to you. For me, yeah, it's nice. I actually like it more than I thought I would, but I don't necessarily need it on my collection with the likes of a Grimlock, Ultra Magnus, Optimus Prime, Rodimus, as I would say an Omnibot alongside them. And there we go, that is my review of X-Transbots Secret Agent Yaguchi, their version of an Omnibot downshift. I'll stick some photos up at the end. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and hit that subscribe button because I will see you on the next one.